Just look at the magnificent bronze statues from the ancient world, right? They're masterpieces of art and engineering, surviving for millennia. We see them in museums, standing silent and serene, these lone survivors from a lost age. And it's easy to imagine they were forged in some flash of divine inspiration, isn't it? But what if their story isn't quite so serene? What if the secret to their creation wasn't in a mine, but in an act of brutal destruction? What if the bronze for this hero came from the shattered body of a god? The truth is, the story of ancient bronze isn't just one of creation. It's about a shocking, hidden economy of violent recycling, where new art literally sprang from the ruins of old, and the gods of one generation became the raw material for the next. When you think of classical sculpture, what comes to mind? For most of us, it's a world of white marble, isn't it? Those elegant, pale figures of gods, goddesses, emperors, and athletes that line our greatest museums. But here's the thing. That perception? It's a phantom, a distortion of history. We're seeing what survived, not what existed. Because the truth is, the ancient Greeks and Romans prized bronze statues above all others. They were the pinnacle of artistic achievement, more lifelike, more dynamic, and far more prestigious than their marble counterparts. Ancient writers, they describe cities and sanctuaries absolutely overflowing with thousands upon thousands of these lustrous metal figures. The historian Pliny the Elder wrote of the sheer number of statues in cities like Rhodes, Athens, and Olympia. We're talking about a scale that's almost impossible for us to wrap our heads around today. So here's the profound mystery. If the ancient world was absolutely teeming with bronze statues, where in the world did they all go? Out of the countless thousands that once existed, barely a few dozen large-scale Greek bronzes have survived to our time. It's a staggering loss, a cultural extinction event, if you think about it. For centuries, people just figured they decayed, succumbed to the passage of time. But the reality? It's far more deliberate, far more brutal. Most of these statues weren't lost. They were destroyed. They were hunted down, torn from their pedestals, and violently dismantled, not by accident, but by design. To understand why, though, we first need to get what bronze truly meant to the ancient world. It wasn't just some art material, it was a strategic resource. An alloy of copper and tin, it was the stuff of weapons, armor, tools, and, crucially, currency. These metals had to be mined and traded across vast distances, making bronze an incredibly valuable commodity, leaving tons of it standing around in the form of a statue of some now unfashionable politician or a forgotten god. To many ancient minds, that was just extreme waste. So, the story of what happened to these statues isn't really one of neglect. It's a story of economics, politics, and religion. A story of recycling on an industrial scale. To really get why these statues were such tempting targets for recycling, we've got to understand the immense effort that went into making them. Creating a life-sized bronze statue wasn't as simple as carving a block of stone, believe me. It was a complex, multi-stage process, as much science as it was art. The primary method used by the Greeks and Romans was called hollow lost wax casting. Think of it like an incredibly sophisticated recipe, if you will. First, the artist would whip up a master model of the statue, usually out of clay. This was their original vision, perfect in every detail. From this master model, they'd make a mold, often in several pieces. The inside of that mold was then coated with a precise layer of beeswax. The thickness of this wax layer would eventually become the thickness of the final bronze. Once that wax layer was complete, the inside got filled with a liquid clay mixture, creating a heat-resistant core. Iron rods often got inserted to hold this whole precarious assembly together. This wax and clay sandwich was then fitted with a network of wax channels. These would act as vents for air and pathways for the molten metal to flow. The whole thing was then encased in a final thick layer of clay and heated in a kiln. And this is where the lost wax part of the name comes in. As the kiln heated up, the beeswax would melt and drain out, leaving a perfectly hollow cavity between the outer mold and the inner core, the exact shape of the final statue. Now, for the moment of truth. Molten bronze, heated to around 950 degrees Celsius, was poured into the mold, filling that void left by the wax. After it cooled, the outer clay mold was carefully broken away, revealing the newly born bronze piece. But the work? Oh, it was far from over. Large statues were almost always cast in several pieces. Think head, torso, arms, legs, all created separately, then meticulously joined together. Seams were polished away, imperfections smoothed, and finishing touches added. Eyes, often made from calcite, glass paste, or ivory, were inserted to give the statue a startlingly lifelike gaze. Lips, even nipples, were sometimes inlaid with copper or silver to give it a flush of color and realism. This painstaking process required a team of highly skilled artisans and an immense amount of very expensive material. The finished product wasn't just an object of beauty, but a massive investment of wealth and technological prowess. A single large statue could contain tons of valuable metal. And that immense material value is the first major clue to solving the mystery of their disappearance. In a world of constant warfare, shifting economies, and changing tastes, these beautiful objects were, in essence, giant piggy banks waiting to be smashed. That romantic image of an artist creating a masterpiece from freshly mined ore? For the most part, it's a fantasy. The shocking secret at the heart of the ancient bronze industry is this. It was fueled by a relentless, often violent cycle of destruction and rebirth. The primary source of bronze for new statues wasn't some mine in Cyprus or Cornwall. It was, more often than not, another statue. Picture this scenario. A Roman general conquers a Greek city. The city's public square is adorned with statues of its local heroes and patron gods. For the conqueror, these aren't just art. They're symbols of a defeated identity. So down they come. The statues aren't shipped back to Rome as trophies, at least not always. Instead, they're taken to a workshop, smashed into manageable pieces with sledgehammers, and tossed into a furnace. The bronze that once depicted a Greek athlete is melted down and recast into a portrait of the Roman emperor, a symbol of the new order. This wasn't some rare occurrence. It was pretty much standard practice. This hidden economy operated for centuries, driven by a cold, pragmatic logic that feels alien to our modern reverence for art. There were three main drivers of this brutal cycle: economics, politics, and religion. First up, economics. Bronze was simply too valuable to be left idle. When an empire needed to fund a war, pay its legions, or mint a new batch of coins to deal with a financial crisis, guess what? Statues were a readily available source of high-quality metal. Melting down a few dozen statues of long-dead figures was a much faster and cheaper way to fill the state's coffers than organizing a massive mining and shipping operation. In many cases, this wasn't just looting. It was state policy. Second, politics. In the ancient world, public statues were a powerful form of political propaganda, plain and simple. They celebrated rulers, commemorated victories, and reinforced ideologies. When power changed hands, so too did the statues. A new dynasty or a victorious emperor would often issue a damnatio memoriae, literally, a condemnation of memory against their predecessor. This meant wiping them from history. Their names would be scrubbed from inscriptions, their portraits destroyed. Bronze statues were a prime target. Sometimes the entire statue would get melted down. In other cases, for efficiency's sake, just the head would be lopped off and replaced with a new one. The body of a disgraced emperor could be recycled to serve his successor, a grim but practical form of political transition. Finally, and perhaps most destructively of all, there was religion. The rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire from the 4th century onwards unleashed a veritable wave of ideological destruction. To the new faith, those thousands of statues of Greek and Roman gods and goddesses weren't art. They were idols. They were seen as demonic, blasphemous objects that needed to be purged from the world. Full stop. Edicts were passed banning pagan worship, and zealous Christians took it upon themselves to cleanse their cities. Temples were destroyed or converted into churches, and the statues within? Smashed. The bronze, now stripped of its divine significance, was just raw material, ready to be melted down and repurposed for Christian uses. Church bells, crosses, or simply mundane coins. This convergence of motives created a perfect storm of destruction. For nearly 1,000 years, the magnificent bronze heritage of the classical world was systematically dismantled and fed into the furnace, a victim, in a way, of its own intrinsic value. For a long time, this whole story of mass recycling was mostly theoretical, pieced together from ancient texts and, well, the glaring absence of the statues themselves. But recently, archaeology has given us astonishing, tangible proof. In the ancient city of Metropolis, in modern-day Turkey, excavators have unearthed what can only be described as an ancient scrapyard for gods. During excavations led by Professor Serdar Aybek, archaeologists uncovered a cache of around 2,000 bronze statue fragments, all bundled together in one single location. This wasn't just some random collection of broken art. The pieces were systematically dismantled, suggesting a deliberate and organized operation. The finds are both spectacular and haunting, by the way. There are disembodied fingers, curled as if they once held a spear, the delicate straps of a bronze sandal, its wearer long gone, and hauntingly, vacant eyes, once inlaid with glass or stone, now just staring from a fragment of a face. These fragments come from statues that spanned centuries, all the way from the Hellenistic period right through to the Roman era. This indicates this wasn't some single act of destruction, but likely an ongoing process. According to the excavators, this site was a collection point where statues, broken specifically for melting, were gathered. The location is believed to date to late antiquity, the very period when Christianity was supplanting the old pagan religions. This provides a direct link between the rise of monotheism and the physical destruction of the old gods. The statues of Apollo, Zeus, and Aphrodite had lost their spiritual value and were simply being reduced to their material worth. Even more telling? The discovery of square and rectangular bronze plates right alongside the statue pieces. Professor Aybek believes these plates are crucial evidence of a workshop, used for either repairing existing statues or, more likely, for casting new ones. Some of these plates would have been used as patches to cover holes left during the casting process, indicating a sophisticated production and maintenance operation in Metropolis. The Metropolis find is like a crime scene, frozen in time. It gives us a visceral, undeniable look at this whole process of destruction. You can just imagine workers violently breaking up these once revered figures, sorting them by size, and prepping them for the furnace. Archaeologists theorize that a significant portion of this bronze was destined to be melted down and minted into coins, transforming sacred art into spendable cash. The city of the Mother Goddess, as Metropolis was once known, had become a graveyard for her peers, a place where the divine was rendered down to its base elements, ready for a new life as something else entirely. It's the clearest evidence we have of this hidden economy, a place where the secret source of bronze is laid bare for all to see. The stories we find buried beneath the earth are constantly rewriting the history we thought we knew. If you're finding this hidden history as fascinating as I do, Why not hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the secrets of the ancient world? Your support really helps us keep digging for these incredible stories. Given this relentless, centuries-long campaign of destruction and recycling, the real question isn't why so few bronze statues survive. The real question is, why do any survive at all? The answer, in almost every single case, is sheer luck. The masterpieces we have today? They're accidental survivors, the ones that escaped the furnace through some incredible twist of fate. Many of the most famous bronzes were actually preserved by catastrophe. Take, for instance, the magnificent charioteer of Delphi. This stunningly preserved statue from around 470 BC was part of a large monument that likely stood near the Temple of Apollo. It survived because it got buried in a rock fall during an earthquake back in 373 BC. It lay hidden and protected beneath the earth for over 2 millennia until French excavators unearthed it in 1896. Had it remained standing, it would have almost certainly been melted down centuries later, no doubt. Even more dramatic is the story of the Rias warriors. These two larger-than-life bronze warriors, dated to the 5th century BC, are among the most spectacular examples of Greek sculpture ever found. They were discovered in 1972 by a recreational diver off the coast of Rias, Italy, just lying on the seabed a few hundred meters from shore. The prevailing theory is they were cargo on a ship, likely being transported from Greece to Rome, maybe as valuable loot or antiques for some wealthy collector. The ship sank, and its precious cargo was consigned to the depths, safe from the melting pots of the Roman Empire and beyond. Their survival? A direct result of a maritime disaster. These aren't isolated incidents either. Many of the fragments and statues we have were found in the sea, remnants of ancient shipwrecks. Others were preserved by volcanic eruptions, like those found in Pompeii and Herculaneum, buried under ash and mud long before they could ever be recycled. This pattern of survival completely reframes our understanding of ancient art, doesn't it? We're not seeing the greatest hits of antiquity. We're seeing the lucky few, that's what. For every charioteer of Delphi or Rias warrior, thousands of others, perhaps even greater works, have simply vanished without a trace. The art we see in museums represents the tiny fraction that was lost to human hands, hidden by disaster long enough to be rediscovered by a world that had finally begun to see them as priceless art rather than valuable scrap. This new perspective reveals a profound truth. Our museums aren't just filled with masterpieces of creation, but with monuments to accidental survival. They're the exceptions that prove a brutal rule of destruction and reuse, a rule that governed the fate of art for most of human history. This ancient practice of breaking down the old to create the new might seem like a relic from a distant, more brutal past. But the fundamental principle that metal is a valuable and endlessly recyclable resource is just as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. The cycle of recycling metal into art never stopped, you see. It just changed its form. Today, contemporary artists and foundries are carrying on this ancient tradition, turning what we consider scrap into stunning works of sculpture. Instead of melting down statues of pagan gods, they're melting down the detritus of our own civilization. You've got foundries taking old, discarded brass faucets, melting them in furnaces heated to over 1,400 degrees Celsius, refining the metal into ingots, and then using the very same lost wax casting technique as the ancient Greeks to create bronze replicas of masterpieces by artists like Michelangelo. The journey from a leaky tap to a Renaissance-style sculpture is the modern echo of a statue of Zeus being reborn as a statue of a Roman emperor. Artists around the world are actually embracing scrapyards as their mines. Welders sculpt lifelike human figures from discarded pieces of sheet metal and rusty machine parts. Other sculptors transform the heavy-duty components of industrial life, the gearbox from a tractor, the bucket from an excavator, or a whole pile of old farm equipment, into powerful figures of animals and people. Even humble horseshoes are collected, heated, and forged into new and beautiful shapes. This modern movement of upcycling gives us a tangible connection to the past, doesn't it? It highlights that core pragmatism that drove the ancient world. While we might lament the loss of countless ancient masterpieces, we can also see a different kind of story here, one of resourcefulness and adaptation. The ancients weren't necessarily thoughtless vandals. They were practical people living in a world where resources were scarce. The decision to melt down a statue was often not an act of hate, but an act of practicality. That bronze could serve a new purpose, as currency to pay soldiers, as nails for a new building, or as a statue honoring a new leader. Looking at a modern scrap metal sculpture, you start to understand the ancient mindset in a new light. The material itself has a continuous life, a story that stretches from one object to the next. The bronze in a Roman coin could have once been a Greek shield, which in turn might have been part of an even earlier Bronze Age tool. This endless cycle of transformation? That's the hidden biography of the metal itself. The ancient world's shocking secret isn't just about destruction, you see. It's about the eternal, unstoppable flow of materials through human history. So, when we look upon the serene face of an ancient bronze statue, we're really only seeing a single moment in a long and often violent story. The secret source of bronze was, in so many cases, the art of a previous generation. The classical world wasn't some static museum of untouchable masterpieces. It was a dynamic and often brutal ecosystem of creation, destruction, and reincarnation. The forests of bronze statues that once populated ancient cities were systematically harvested, their material value proving more enduring than their artistic or religious meaning. They were melted down for coins, for weapons, for new statues honoring new powers, and then, in a great wave of religious fervor, they were smashed as idols. The handful of survivors we cherish today are beautiful accidents of history, preserved by shipwrecks, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. Their burials were their only salvation. This new understanding doesn't diminish their beauty, not at all, but it certainly adds a profound layer to their story. It challenges our modern notion of art as this sacred, permanent thing, and reveals a world where it was a resource, constantly in flux. The story of ancient bronze is a stark reminder that history isn't just about what's created, but also about what's destroyed and what's reborn from the ashes. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we could analyze the bronze in a Roman emperor's statue, which gods, heroes, or rival kings might we find melted down inside? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed uncovering this hidden history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories from the ancient world. Thanks for watching.